welcome to our last Book Sandwiched In presentation for 2020. I'm Barbara Cook, co-chair with Bev Stevens, right in the front row this time, of the Book Sandwiched In series. As always, there are refreshments at the counter and table at the side of the room, and Brad is at the back of the room, manning the membership table for the last time this season. We also have a list of some of the other books that we considered for this year, and it also is located on the refreshment table. Some of you may have seen it as you were picking up your goodies. Dr. Christine Atkins is our presenter today of Rising Out of Hatred, The Awakening of a Former White Nationalist by Eli Saslow. Christine is a professor of English at Corning Community College, where she also serves as the coordinator of the One Book, One College Common Reading Program, and is the chair of the college's Diversity Council. You may remember her presentation of Ready Player One in our 2018 BSI series. Christine has gone to Everest Base Camp in Nepal and has also trekked on the Inca Trail in Peru and throughout the mountains of Colorado. She is an enthusiastic skier, bicyclist, meditator, and dancer. In addition, Chris loves fashion, skateboarding culture, vegetarian food, and spending time with friends and family. Welcome back, Christine, to Book Sandwiched In.
Hi, Mom and David, if you're watching this. My mom's in Hawaii right now. I'm thrilled to be here again. Forgive me, I'm at the age where I need like the kind of glasses that are like one thing here and one thing here, so I just take them on and off constantly. It's super annoying. I want to first introduce a few of my students who are going to help me with this presentation, and I have a few students in the audience as well. To my right, Tanis Franchi is a liberal arts major, and Tanis has been in the theater since high school, and he's hoping to continue on to study theater after SUNY Corning CC. Adrienne Roney is a Chemtech major who's studying medical technology, and she has most recently been a member of the Diversity Council. I also have a few students in the audience. Raise your hand. Shaw, David, Rachel. So welcome to the students, and I can't do this without you guys. So I'm going to show a few clips first, and then we're going to try a 5-minute video clip. There's no audio here, so what I'll do is hold the microphone to try to hope that you can hear it. And do you guys want a seat or something? You can lean against the table, make yourselves comfortable. Okay. Yeah, oh, well, I like them to my right. So, I'm going to take this out of here. What is One Book, One College? I got a grant back in 2013 under our last president, Dr. Kate Douglas. And with that grant, I started this Common Read program, One Book, One College. The first year, we selected The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. And since that year, you can see the list of some of the other books. The only year I wasn't the coordinator was last year. A colleague of mine is completely obsessed with Frankenstein, and I said, fine, you can do it. Just take Frankenstein for the year, and now I'm coordinating again. If you were at my Ready Player One presentation a few years ago, I didn't like that book at all. We decided to pick it because students were complaining, oh, these books are so serious and they're so political, and so I was like, fine, let's have one about video games. Tanis, you've read it. What did you think?
It was, I wasn't one for it, but my friend liked it.
Okay. Have you read it? Anyone else? Anyway, so as you can see, it's currently housed in our English department, so English classes will adopt the book, but what we've been doing is aligning a lot of programming with the book throughout the year, and if you've heard of the Walter Smith Visiting Lecture Series, we're also trying to align with that, so when their selection works, we will adopt that, and we can bring the speaker like this year, and I'll get to that in a minute. So here's just a little bit about this particular author of the book, Eli Saslow. He's a reporter for the Washington Post. I'm not going to read all of his awards. He did win the Pulitzer Prize. It was not for this particular book. Oh, don't hand those out yet. Okay, you can. That was like my surprise at the end. Oh, it's okay. You're still getting extra credit. This is the book. This is the hardcover of the book I'm going to talk about. The new version has the bright orange cover. Okay. So, how did this book come about? Eli Saslow heard about Derek Black, the book is featuring this young man's transformation, when he was working on a story about Dylan Roof, a white supremacist who killed 9 African Americans at a church in Charleston, South Carolina in 2015. So, I'm going to talk a lot about Stormfront today. Stormfront is Derek Black's father's website. When Eli Saslow went on the website, he read post after post celebrating what Roof did. But the biggest thread on the site was about Derek Black, who was denounced as a traitor to the white nationalist movement. Saslow learned that Black had written a letter to the Southern Poverty Law Center renouncing his past and had disappeared. And that's all he knew, but the story kept haunting him. What happened in the 3 years to have this person transformed? So Derek Black grew up, I'll get to his past in a second, but the transformation that he underwent took place at college, which is one of the reasons we wanted to use this book, because in a college, so many people's sort of ideologies and belief systems change like right out of the gate or within months of starting. So, Derek Black, who is he? You know, if you think of the title, it says, Rising Out of Hatred, the Awakening of a Former White Nationalist. He is the son of the Grand Wizard of Ku Klux Klan, Don Black, and he was once heir apparent to the white nationalist movement. Growing up, he made speeches, hosted a radio show, and he started a kids' website called Kids Stormfront, which was a companion piece to the Stormfront hate website that Don created. And it was only after attending New College of Florida that he began to question his own point of view. So Derek was only in public school for a little bit as a kid, and then he was homeschooled. Hey, why don't you jump in? Tell us about, stand up. What did Derek do while being homeschooled?
While he was homeschooled, he taught himself fishing, electronics, canoeing, I think, at some point. He's just jack of all trades. He just pretty much learned everything he wanted to. His parents gave him free reign at home, and he just taught himself.
He also learned music, so he played the guitar very well. The best thing I could maybe say about Derek is probably he really absorbed information. They made a point that at one of the rallies, while he was a small kid, he was the only child who was actually paying attention and absorbing what they were saying.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. You guys are great. Keep helping me. Okay. I'm stressing. I'm stressing about the video. Let's just try it because. Oh God, what just happened? Here we go. Goodness, oh goodness, I'm in a church. Okay. So let's go back here. Can you hear this? Let me know. Oh, that's right. Thanks, students.
There are over 250 million people on the World Wide Web.
Can you hear it or not?
Yeah.
Yes.
Every day, 150,000 more sign up. Increasingly, what people find when they log on is hate. The first hate site came online in 1995. At last count,
I'm sorry, I should pause it. This is something that I forgot to do. I'm just giving you a trigger warning. There are very disturbing images. The N-word is used. So I just want to give that heads up to people. It's hard to watch, so I apologize. Please feel free to leave the room or close your eyes. Okay.
there were hundreds. New sites come online weekly.
first hate site to come online was Stormfront. For the first time, the leaders of the hate movement could send their message into homes throughout the world. The founder of Stormfront is Don Black, the godfather of hate on the net. I'm tired of the Jewish monopoly over the news media and entertainment media, and I'm working very hard to provide an alternative to that. And the internet is that opportunity we've been looking for. Over the years, I've distributed tens of thousands of leaflets and newspapers, maybe hundreds of thousands, but we never were able to reach the kind of audience that we can now so easily and inexpensively. Stormfront provides links to dozens of other websites, creating a virtual supermarket of hate. The internet provides us with the power to recruit people at all levels. People who occupy positions of power, people working within the system, but who are fed up with the way it's being run and who are interested in changing things. Most people who hold our point of view are reluctant to become publicly known because they're afraid they'll lose their jobs or they'll be subject to other forms of harassment. In fact, it's a pretty small minority who don't care if their names become associated with what is a very politically unfashionable point of view.
On the top it says Delenda es Judaica, which is Latin for destroy the Jews. And on the bottom is our battle cry Rohoa, which means racial holy war. I decided to show everybody who I am and let them know who I am, and that I'm proud of it. I believe that my race is the reason for living, and that breeding more white people into this world is my purpose for being here. Each species is here for the survival of their own kind, and that they stick within their own kind and they don't interbreed with other animals. One day we will be able to send the niggers back to Africa, Mexicans back to Mexico. Once that happens, we do plan on conquering the whole world and making the whole world one.
Teaching a generation of people our point of view, and we're teaching them something they don't hear in the schools, they don't see on television normally. The net is providing us with fantastic opportunity, and we're certainly going to take advantage of it. Since Don Black's Stormfront first appeared, it's received over 2.5 million hits. His 11-year-old son, Derek, has even started a site of his own.
The name of my website is Stormfront for Kids, and I've designed it for white children of the globe. There are no longer any real white nations, and I believe that we need one for our race to survive. I would not prefer to live with non-whites because they do not have the same values, the same ideals and beliefs that I have. I am not the only kid out there who has these beliefs. I get lots of emails every day saying that they have the same beliefs and want to help, show more kids about it, let more kids see it.
White people are taught in school to be ashamed of their heritage. Now is the time that all of the white people across the globe should rise above the lies and be proud of who we are. To take back our freedom and win for all to see our heritage in its greatest glory.
The internet offers hate groups a chance to reach unsuspecting children at home without the knowledge of their parents. To lure kids, many sites use racist comic books and puzzles.
The niggers of Africa never so much as invented the...
On young Derek Black's site, children can link to an unauthorized version of the popular game Doom, where they are encouraged to kill blacks.
I think that's enough of that. I want to point out two things about this. So this is from a film called Hate.com, it was in 2000 that they made this film. the website Stormfront has only exploded exponentially after that, and of course when Trump was elected, it even got more hits. So that was Derek as a young boy, and that sort of like gives you a sense of where he was at, creating these video games. Okay, so let's go back to current slide. You can turn the lights back on if you want. I feel sort of far from everybody. Let's see. Oh. Yeah, just that one. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Okay, so that gives you a sense of, I mean, clearly you heard his father, Derek's father, and like his beliefs. I'm sure you have reactions to that. We can talk about it during Q&A, of course. So here's a little bit more about Don Black. I mean, in addition to Stormfront, he also in 1981 he tried to attempt an armed overthrow of the government in the island of Dominica. Like they were going to start, like, weren't they starting like a
Operation Red Dot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Pretty much. Him and a bunch of other white nationalists decided to get together and buy a bunch of like ammunition and stuff, and we're gonna get on a boat to the island of Dominica and take it over. They got caught like in the truck with was bad.
They weren't the brightest bulbs in the racist movement. So this is who his dad is. His mother, get this. His mother, before marrying Don Black, was vice president of the KKK and was previously married to neo-Nazi David Duke. So it's like all in the family. And David Duke was really important in Derek's upbringing. They named him his godfather. So he spent lots of time with David Duke. Do you guys want to add something to that?
Yeah. It's more than just his godfather. He was his role model. He really had a lot to do with how Derek spoke to others and how he presented himself. They went to conferences together, and he would just watch Don speak, and Derek was just...
They were hanging out in Europe.
Yeah, they went to Europe for like months, like 3 months actually, together.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're sort of getting a sense of this family dynamic. This is just some information about Stormfront. Their myth, they credit to their mission the founding myth of the America created, built, and ideologically grounded by descendants of white Europeans. I actually, and some of the key tenets, besides racism against blacks, Latinx people, now there's Islamophobia and a lot of anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial. Ooh, but I wanted to mention, one of the last things said in the film was they said, white people are taught in schools to hate the white race. And I just showed this clip in my class that Rachel's in, and a student grabbed me after class and he's like, I was talking about this book with one of my friends in the dorms, and he wants to come talk to you because we do kind of feel like white people are made to feel badly in K-12 schools, and even more so in colleges. If we say we're proud of our European heritage, people think we're racist. So I have to, I'm going to arrange a meeting with them. How would you respond to that? Adrian?
I personally wouldn't. But this book has taught me, I read it twice after we read it in class. Be the change you wish to see. Like, if you want someone to feel a different type of way, the only way to do that is to encourage them. Like, I've grown up in predominantly white neighborhoods. So, like, being the only black person in my classes or, like, in after-school curriculums or in sports, the only way to make them see differently is to show them that you are different. Like, there's not a stigmatism to follow. But I wouldn't respond to that, honestly.
Yeah. Do you want to say something? Yeah. Anyway, we'll keep going. I just want to talk about, so the weird thing about Derek, and by the way, Adrian, I'm really going to rely on you when we talk about his girlfriend, Allison, because I know you had a lot to say. Derek as a person, before, he sort of renounce white nationalism. And you know what? I shouldn't say white nationalism. We talked about this. I want to talk about language for a second. So if you think about the trajectory of hate against, especially African Americans in the US, we started with the KKK. And then during the civil rights movement, there was this thing in the South called the Citizens Council, which is basically also the KKK, just but like the Rotary dressed up version. So we've always had these two parallel types of white hatred, or white hate groups. So that morphed into, over time, people are like, I don't want to be associated with the KKK. So let's call it then it became white supremacy. After that, the name changed to white nationalism, and then most recently, alt-right. But Derek was really instrumental, as you can see, in the goal for him was to normalize and rebrand white supremacy with white nationalism to make it more palatable and more mainstream. And I see that going on right now. It's like, this is why they were trying through the internet to reach more and more people. And by making it like, we're not a Klan, we're just like, we have white pride and yeah.
Yeah, so pretty much what had happened was David Duke and Don Black, they both were like the old KKK, in which, Klan robes and all that. So then with Derek Black, he took a new approach. As you can see, he's wearing a cowboy hat, he's all cleaned up, he looks presentable, he looks like a nice guy. And then you've got other people like Ben Shapiro and Richard Spencer, all clean cut, shaven, just clean guys. And they took effort to rebrand themselves on the internet into a gentler approach and to seem more approachable, and it genuinely worked. And there's a bunch of kids now thinking that like these guys are like, look, they're nice guys, why would they be bad? And then they gain alt-right think tanks like Richard Spencer, and they just have more media presence now and charisma, and it's dangerous.
Okay, I'll move a little faster. So, and Derek and his father, at the time Derek starts college, because remember, he's homeschooled, then he went briefly to a community college in Florida, then he transfers to New College, which I'll get to in a second. Actually, I'll go there now. So, for some reason, and I found it weird, we talked about this in class, he selected New College of Florida, which is in majority white, but it has a reputation for being liberal, LGBTQIA, and pot-friendly. So it's very liberal sort of place. So to me, it was a weird choice, but his parents, remember what his parents said? They weren't worried about him going there because they were like, oh, he's not going to get influenced by these liberals. There's no way. He's going to just probably infiltrate and whatever. But while he's at New College, he's doing this radio show with his dad at the same time. So, anyone want to tell the story of his first day on campus? First person he meets, he gets lost on the way to orientation. He drives his PT Cruiser from his parents' house all the way across Florida. The first person he meets when he's lost is Juan Elias. Juan was a Peruvian immigrant. They were trying to find the orientation. Then they later discovered they shared the same dorm. Derek liked to play guitar in the courtyard, and that was kind of how he met friends. He was playing music, and people were coming up and singing like Johnny Cash songs and some other stuff. Juan was not the typical type of immigrant that the hate groups, consider, oh, Mexicans coming to steal our jobs. So he talks to Juan, and Juan is like, well, we had to leave my country because of political persecution, and Juan didn't even want to come to the U.S. They were granted citizenship. Then his next friend is Matthew Stevenson, who's an Orthodox Jew who hosts weekly Shabbat dinners, and they invite Derek. Again, nobody knows at this time, I forgot to mention this, that he's a white nationalist. He's totally under the radar. So he's keeping it a secret. We talked in class today, Rachel, about the first girl he starts dating is Rose, who is Jewish. So he finds out after he's falling for her, oh, okay, now his best friends are a Peruvian guy, Orthodox Jew, and he's dating a Jewish girl who's very cute and he thinks is smart. He doesn't tell her. In fact, one day he takes her to an appointment and he's got to call into the radio show, so he what did he do? He pretended he was talking about the weather to throw her off. So right before he decides to go abroad to study with David Duke and study German, for some reason, he decides there was a feature about him in Details magazine, or I put Esquire, but it was Details, some men's magazine. And he's like living this dual identity, and he's feeling like doesn't know what to do, so he leaves the magazine in the fitness center of the college. And while he's in Europe, someone finds it, and they say, because there's this online forum called it's the New College Forum, and they're like, do you know this guy? And then all hell breaks loose. So will you talk about this? I'll talk and then I'm going to hand it to you. So he starts reading this forum. It was an email post where all the college students were sort of getting on every day and hashing out issues. He's introduced to the language of like social justice on the forum. So he's hearing words like trigger warnings, microaggressions. He's learning about racism, homophobia, transphobia, sexism, and he's getting new information, and he's a smart guy. So he's starting to figure this out. He develops a romantic relationship with a classmate named Rose, who was a roommate of Matthew, who ran the Shabbat dinners. And over time, she just starts working to change his views. So I'm going to turn to Adrian. Tell us about that process please.
So I guess I'll say with Rose, she more of...
Could you hold the mic out?
Oh, sorry. So with Rose, I'll say she more or less just went at it. She went to things with him. She would talk to him about his point of view. Just trying to get an understanding of why he thinks the way he thinks.
Allison.
Was it?
Yeah, because remember, was it Rose too? Allison. Yeah, Allison's the long-term girlfriend. No, I just remember he had a girlfriend for like a hot minute, Rose, and then Allison. So tell us about Allison.
So Allison went to Klan meetings with him. She is not a Klansman or white nationalist. She's not a white supremacist. She was just a regular girl who seen this person who felt that his views needed to be changed. And she could see how he was. Like, he liked reasoning. He liked that if there's a why, there's a way. So with Derek, she really had to figure out, like, why do you think this way? And come up with a fact to disprove it, and then show him the fact as to why he's thinking is incorrectly. Basically, she just gave him a history book, because his history books were wrong. Like, the one that they did look at said there was no Holocaust to them.
That's great. I mean, and Allison, they had different belief systems, but she was so in love with him, she was just like determined to change his mind. And in the book we learned, like, I think it said she grew up arguing, like she loved arguing and he loved arguing, and they both liked logic and they're both super smart. So she starts giving him true statistics about IQs and true statistics about racism and stuff like that. So gradually he does publicly renounce his views. He writes a statement to the Southern Poverty Law Center. I already met someone in the audience who was there last year. I was down in Birmingham and Montgomery. You're from Alabama. We talked a lot about Alabama, and I want to make a quick pitch for an NPR podcast called White Lies. I forgot to say this. So in this class, which I taught, and we're doing it again this semester, before we got to Rising Out of Hatred, I had us listen to this podcast. Has anybody heard it? White Lies on NPR. It follows these two reporters from Alabama, the college professors, journalists. They decided to look into the unsolved murder of Reverend James Reeb. Does that name ring a bell to anybody? During the Civil Rights, when
he's one of the names at the Equal Justice Initiative.
Yes. So the march in Selma, Bloody Sunday, when MLK and a bunch of protesters were attacked, and they were driven back, and then King said he reached out to ministers across the U.S. and said, "We need your help. Come down to Selma." Well, Reeb and two other, I believe, Unitarian Universalist ministers in Selma at the time, if you were a white civil rights worker, you couldn't eat in a white restaurant, you couldn't go to a white hospital, so they go to a black establishment for dinner. They take a wrong turn, and Reed got murdered. And the podcast, tell them about the podcast. Oh my God.
Yeah, sure. So pretty much like she's... Okay, yeah, it's just pretty much a really exciting murder mystery podcast. I was enthralled with it when we listened to it, and it was just a bunch of really interesting theories, and we got to hear a lot of interviews from actual people who lived there during the moment, and they were all very crazy. Like, they didn't want to say anything about the murder. They didn't know nothing, even though they totally knew something, and it was just a really interesting listen to.
Well, I will say the journalists uncovered that the three men who killed Reed, they knew that these three dudes killed him. Of course, nobody served jail time. Everything was racist, corrupt, criminal justice system. But they find a fourth man who attacked Reed, who was still alive, living in Selma. Everybody in town knew who he was, and nobody said anything. And this podcast was made like a hot minute ago. These unsolved murders of black people in the South, again, over and over again, no one has been punished. Under Obama, they did the Emmett Till bill. I don't know if you remember that, around 2006 or 7. So the FBI actually did look into Reed's case back then, but they couldn't pursue it because it was very specific, it had to be federal crimes that they could totally reopen. So, back to this. Sorry, Southern poverty made me think of this. He rejects white nationalism. In ensuing months, white nationalism explodes into mainstream politics. And let's talk about, this is now, right? There are battles over destruction of Confederate monuments. There's white nationalist marches and rallies. A lot of murders have been inspired by Derek Black's father's website, Stormfront. You've got these white people going on it and getting inspired, and they're responsible for the murders that are happening now. Dylan Roof's 2015 murder, the cause of that was to ignite a race war. So I think this is when Trump announced his candidacy, Derek, now having renounced the movement, saw that the product of his messaging, was coming to fruition. He felt compelled to share his story. Trump's election made white supremacists feel like they won the nation's biggest popularity contest. As we know, the administration has been filled with people sympathetic to racist ideology. And, where is he now? And I was trying to find out last night, where exactly is he now? After he rejected the movement, his family kind of pushed him away. He changed his name to Roland Derek Black and started grad school at Western Michigan University in medieval studies. He's still with his girlfriend. So, what did the students think of the book? Tell us what you thought.
I can start, yeah. So pretty much, I think at the beginning or halfway through the book, we discussed on whether or not we genuinely believed that Derek Black was actually making progress in changing his views. And I personally felt that he was changing his views and he was making a genuine attempt at being a better person, but a lot of the class was divided with it, and a lot of people were like, yeah, but is he faking it? It was just really interesting debating with the class about whether or not we genuinely thought whether or not he was trying to get better or he was still secretly a white nationalist.
My first time reading the book through, I will say I did not enjoy it. I found it kind of boring. That's the reason I read it the second time, because the book has a deeper message and ultimately be the change you wish to see. And if you love someone and you see that they're seeing things wrong, you need to force that change on them. You need to be open-minded. You don't always have to be, I'm very passive. If things happen, it showed me that you can't always be like that, because nothing will come of that if you're always just allowing things to go over. You have to stand up and try and fight to make a difference.
Did you believe that he was really changing, or did you think? I thought you started the thing
I do believe Derek changed. I do. I don't believe that you would give up your family and everything that you've known. Your entire life has changed. Everyone you're friends with is gone. now that you have a new belief system.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it went on, like, his girlfriend Allison just tried for months and months to change him. It was getting a little bit repetitive, like, just why is she with this guy? I mean, based on his what he was saying and what his beliefs were. Okay, here's the good news, exciting news. This was the thing. Oh yeah, no, you're so nice, I can help. We are bringing, through the Walter Smith Visiting Scholar Series, Eli Saslow to our campus. So everyone has time. I mean, we tried to schedule this in time for people to get the book and read it. He will be visiting our campus. It's going to be, I believe, in the main dining room of the Commons. April 14th. It's a Tuesday night from 7 to 8. There will be a book signing to follow. So really hope everyone in the community will come out and read this book. It just seems so timely. It's so urgent. We would love to take questions or just hear from people. So thank you very much. Anyone want to talk? Am I too early? How do we do questions? I don't know. Do you just shout them out and we answer? Okay, Gary raised his hand. Here.
I was interested in the phrase when you said this young woman. I was interested in the phrase where you said this young woman provided real facts to this young man and help him see a different way. Now, we of course know about alternate facts. Did that ever come into the discussion? Because I find that when I'm talking with a person who is very much forgive me to anyone here, anyone's a Trump supporter, we always have the issue of alternate facts and what to believe.
I'll say when she did, it mostly was just like, most of the facts can be disproven because they are so incorrect. Like there is no like bias or information to back it up. So when she would just keep going into detail as to why he was wrong, that would just open his eyes. That would just start to really like let him see the light.
For example, one of the facts that Derek believed in was that black people genetically had a lower IQ, and so she went out of her way to research about the like IQ tests and found that IQ tests are very biased in where you were born, what your nutrition even is. If you had a bad diet due to your poor lifestyle when you were little, you grew up and were, because of that, had a lower IQ because of the tests. Where you lived, whether you had good education, if you lived in inner city or in a rich city, it all was just incredibly biased, and she just went out of her way, researched all of the facts that he said, and then would counter that.
Yeah. Other questions?
Well, I just find it's ironic that their last name is Black.
Oh, heck yeah. Can we get a hello to that? Can we get a hello to that? Other comments or questions? Yeah.
I found it really interesting to read. It was a really fast read for me, and I have been baffled by trying to understand some of the politics and going on, and it helped me to understand that if you are fed this information that he was fed, it's logical that you would come to the understandings that he came to, and so it helped me to understand that people who believe things a little differently than I do have come at it from a different place. I find it difficult to listen to some of the things, but if this is what you were taught, if you listen to Fox News and you go along with it's presented in a logical way. So it just helped me to have a little bit more understanding for people who believe different things politically than I do. And I also think that his girlfriend, Allison's approach, none of us like to be hit over the head. You are wrong, you are wrong. Who changes because we're beaten over the head told they're wrong? Nobody. But she worked within his logic system and presented him with contrasting information that he could go, oh, okay, this is a different perspective. From this, then I get this. Oh. He made the change because he had a new understanding that she presented.
Absolutely. Question in the back.
Was there any talk about the War of 1812? We spend 3 hours on it in this country. You go to Canada, that's 3 weeks. You get a totally different view of the War of 1812. In our history, we get an eastern, northern view, and then you get a southern view of the same history. we learn different histories in different parts of the country. We're talking about different groups and it's all part of that, I see.
Well, I mean, I guess what you're saying is different places have different ideologies or different education systems, maybe?
In many cases, history is about how we want to see ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
And so you will have the South give one type of history because of how it wants to see itself. And you'll have the North give another history because of the way it wants to see itself.
Well, I think the best...
Yeah. The same would be said for like different school districts. Like, so between Tanis and I, we learned that Corning has a much better curriculum than the Elmira High School. They have so much more broad, just everything. It's really where you are, I guess. So yes, it does go along with what you say, but it also starts at home. Like, the education system is only a small part of it.
I mean, one thing I didn't even touch on is the relationship between white supremacy and Christianity in this country, but that's a whole other thing. Yes, in the back, you had a question. Yeah.
As the mother of 2 teenage boys, I'm acutely aware of it's just difficult these days with media, with cultural inputs, what have you, is what they're being exposed to. And, you know, being 2 very liberal parents, we have a really hard time having discussions in our household these days. And I haven't had a chance to read the book yet. I'm looking forward to read it, but I have read relatively recently some books about sort of Islamic extremists and how they recruit males. And the whole idea of disenfranchisement and all that sort of stuff. So is that sort of touched on in this book?
Oh, you know what? Where's that piece of paper?
I think I can kind of answer that. My brother, I have a twin brother, and I'm extremely left-leaning, and I found that he's not. But pretty much, I've noticed that with people, like I said earlier, Ben Shapiro, these Nazis and these white supremacists on YouTube, they make themselves incredibly charismatic, and because they go on places like YouTube, where that's an easy to access forum, young white men in America right now are very vulnerable to people like them at this time. And the only thing that I really found is just with my brother, I just have to be compassionate and understanding with him and try to like gently explain why he's like, why the things that he think are morally reprehensible. And also another thing I found is that higher education at the same time is incredibly helping with that. Like, I've found things that since I've been up in college I didn't even believe in or like didn't know, and I just found that higher education, college, it's helped me get a broader worldview, and it just helped me become more open-minded.
Definitely with the college being very open. I will say Dr. Atkins is probably one of the most open professors I've ever met, and she definitely helps you open your eyes, because obviously I think racists are wrong and refutable. But with Dr. Atkins, it shows you how do you deal with something such. Like, you can't always like fight your way through the situation. It's more of how do I approach this, or how do I approach this person to get them to understand in their own way. I guess mainly it's just showing them history. Like, history repeats itself. If we don't know history, then we're bound to repeat it.
And I just thought, you know, we are really up against the internet. That's why I wanted to show you that, because I thought that was, just pause and think about that for a second. Don Black, the Stormfront guy's like, yeah, I used to hand out flyers. We just used to, you know, that went nowhere. As soon as you get a website, as soon as you've got like a news outlet, you know, and I think to your point, young people, it's as an educator, oh my gosh, this is like the most pressing, urgent thing. They think everything's fake news. No, the Washington Post or like the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, I mean, there are differences between vetted journalism and like real fake news, you know. So I'll point out, like, I listened to a podcast where it's like a writer from New Yorker saying, oh my gosh, they fact check everything we put into it. But I think we have to help young people navigate all the information they're getting. And so much, a lot of people get their news on Facebook. They don't go to an actual news site. And so if they're in the echo chamber of just their friends, you see how this happens. They're only getting people with the same exact point of view, the same things fed, and it's so quick and it's going like this that people don't even really open the article, they're just seeing the headlines, right? I'm just checking the time. But I mean, it's so tricky. I mean, you're next.
Could you please speak a bit about the book itself and tell us how the book was shall we say, a door opener for you and what we might get for those of us who haven't read it?
Okay, yeah, I guess there's so much to talk about. I was like, how do I not make 100 slides? What's interesting about the book, the reason you should read it is this. If you don't know, if you're surprised that, where our country is right now, if you're asking yourself, why is there so much hatred? If you're asking yourselves why half of Americans want to build a wall, and why there's murders of people of color going on, then you should read it, because it's getting at, we're taken on a journey of this white supremacist family. You see this kid, Derek Black, who was raised in this world, what he was taught, and then you show his transformation. But I think for me, the biggest takeaway was just seeing not so much the belief systems, but especially the trajectory of how the internet really spawned more hate groups. The Southern Poverty Law Center has tracked after Trump's election, how exponentially all these groups went up. And actually it goes back to Obama. As soon as Obama was president, it just exploded. Some white Americans felt under threat. So I think that makes it worth it. Does that answer the question? Yep.
Yeah, so pretty much something that I found with the book is I read it multiple times, and I thought it was really good at giving an insider's perspective on what the white supremacy is like nowadays, and hearing from Derek Black, who grew up as a child in this, it really helped me gain a perspective on what they believe, and it kind of helped me gain an understanding of them and how better to counteract them. And I thought it was just, I live in New York State, so we're pretty more better than down there. But it's just, it really helped. Just reading the book really opened my mind and helped me understand people like on Stormfront a lot better, and it just a really good book and read.
Say something, Gary?
One quick question.
Yeah, no, it's 1 o'clock, so I'm going to be...
I'd be interested in your responses. I don't do it as often as I should, but when I watch something on MSNBC, I like to go over and watch on Fox News.
That's smart. Very smart.
And what I notice is that they're not changing the facts, but they are changing the interpretation of the event.
Interesting.
You talk about that in the book at all, or you talk about it in class?
Yes.
No, we did. We touched base upon it. Basically, we were talking about how Facebook has a big thing to do with people's opinions. A lot of people are on the Facebook. They don't read the article. They will read the topic. And the article could be something completely different from the topic. Like, there was one the other day that just talked about Trump's trying to cancel student loans. But if you actually read the article, it talks about his whole student loan program. Ultimately, yes, it was the same thing. But he was trying to change it. We basically just went over how we're not fully informed, because you have to go through all these different sources, like Dr. Atkins says. You have to teach young people the correct way to find that information. It's not so easily available. You can't just flip to the news station, because everything is so biased. I watch 4 different news stations daily. I read different newspapers all the time, because everything is so different, and the topics are different from the actual article. It's what you kind of take away from it, and you can tell which articles are kind of faking it.
What are the 4 stations that you listen to?
I watch Fox News very seldomly. I watch Fox News. I watch MSNBC. I do watch the news in French, because I feel the best way to get news is from other places. And then I watch NBC News, excuse me. But yeah, I feel like the best way to get news is from other places, because they're picking what we're doing apart. This is what the Americans are saying, here's why, yeah.
Yeah, I just gotta agree. If you want like a genuinely like unbiased like news article, I found that European news channels are way better at it than us.
Well, and the last thing I'll say is I often have to say to students, it's okay if things are biased. Yeah, some papers are a little left and some are a little right, and that's not bad by default, is it? I mean, I think that's just how it is. I have this cool article I printed out, not cool, White Homicide Worldwide, it's from the SPLC, and they sort of track like who is prone to becoming part of this movement. We gotta let you guys go. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you, students. Give it up for Janice and Adrian. And thank you to the students in the audience.
Thank you so much, Christine, and also students, Adrian and Dennis. It was amazing to hear your discussion of a very difficult topic. It's a very difficult subject, absolutely. Very important for us to all be aware of what's going on. I think that's important. I think it's important to see something as shocking to me as the video that we had. These are all things that we need to be thinking about and maybe start to address in our own lives as we investigate ourselves. So thank you again very much for a very important eye-opener. I think we And now our BSI series has come to an end for another year. We are so glad that you have attended, and we hope that you have enjoyed our presentations here at the beautiful First Congregational United Church of Christ facility. Thank you very much to the church for hosting us again this year. And thank you to our many volunteers who have made the series possible in so many different ways, including attending. If you have suggestions for books or presenters for next year, please let me know by the end of August so the committee can make its decisions. You may contact me through the library. Just let them know that Barbara Cook is the one that you want this information to get to, and they'll get it to me. Mark your calendars for next year's offerings of books sandwiched in January and February. Again, thank you for coming. See you next year. And for the last time this year, please lift your chairs as you put them in the rack. Thanks again, everybody.